Process work works with the flow of experience. And I think it also, as I mentioned before, it's like one of the main roots of process work is Taoism. So I think it's also, it's an approach that seeks to follow nature, find meaning in nature, and even really disturbing moments and manifestations of, I'll call it, nature. And one of the things I was like looking at this kind of really foundational part of process work, and I loved one of the things that Arnie was saying in one of his writings, is just about this attitude that could say yes to life, like even in the most difficult situations. Normally, for example, we say no to illness, death, problems, and that's right. It's natural, and sometimes it seems that we can face some of the most difficult things in life, say yes to them in a way, explore what might be embedded within these life experiences, and sometimes find, oh my gosh, I thought that was solely a problem, and find something else, oftentimes quite unexpected in the thing itself. So I think that's an amazing thing about process work, is that it's a philosophy, but it's also a practice. And I notice as soon as I say that, I start thinking about different levels of reality, which I don't really want to go into too much today, but just to name it, because I think that's often one of the things that enables people to be able to get into things that on first glance seem pretty troublesome. So with the flow of experience in mind, two things that we look at a lot are primary and secondary processes. Yeah, and if you think about a primary process, a lot of it is what we identify with, what we're aware of, what we're intending. So, like a primary process could be an individual one, like I'm teaching process work right now. That's what I'm trying to do in this moment. Or we're coming together. It's like a process could also be a collective one. We're coming together and we're studying process work and we're connecting with one another. That's kind of what we're intending. We have some awareness about that, and maybe there's some identity around it. Like a part of my identity is as a process worker. You know? And these things could be shorter or longer term. Yeah. Again, individual or collective, and could arise in different channels of perception. So, for example, reading a manuscript could involve a visual channel. Maybe I'm saying some of the things, the words that I'm reading aloud, so maybe there's an auditory aspect, and maybe as I'm flipping the pages of a book, there's like a movement aspect, let's just say. Or it becomes, let's say, if we're reading something together, maybe there's a relational aspect, all right? So different channels of perception, with relationship being more of a kind of a complex or composite channel of experience. Also, I'll get more into channels of perception in another group. I just wanted to name it briefly because these primary and secondary processes can arise in different channels in kind of interesting ways. So then, hey Kitty, are you a little secondary right now? So a secondary process is pretty much the opposite of a primary one. It's a process that may be starting to arise or could arise and is unintended, happens to some degree outside of awareness, and often is not connected to identity. Yeah, Kitty, you're coming in at a perfect moment. So a few examples. So again, and secondary processes. I wonder if I should draw this. Maybe I'll draw this.
Yay.
Yay to drawing?
Yes.
All right. So call this primary process, and we have identity as part of it. We have awareness, and we have intent. Yeah? And especially with identity, that we can kind of like get into these things where, like, yeah, this is who I am. Let's say this is me, Bill. Say, yeah. And this is kind of the sphere of my awareness. These are my intentions. And then there's these funny things that happen in life secondarily. Yeah, I'm trying to teach, but like, Kitty's good. Kitty, what are you doing? You gotta knock my camera over. Come here. Come on. Yeah, interesting. So like I noticed that between Kitty and the sneezes, I notice I very quickly get distracted, and I notice I start to go into a little bit of a different state of mind. And so without even knowing what it is, it seems a little secondary. It's not about my intention to teach, it's about something else that starts to, I don't know what it is because it's a secondary thing. A lot of times, especially at first glance, we really don't know what this thing is. The secondary process happening oftentimes outside of identity, awareness, and intention. Yeah? So here's the exciting thing, like with these bigger secondary processes that, like, for example, really exciting or really disturbing, really foreign, etc., or little momentary blips of something that just seems like, what is that? I don't even know what this little state or this little feeling or this little action that happened between us, because it could happen, for example, through the body-mind. Yeah, it's like, what is this disturbing thought or feeling I'm having, or what is this thing that's going on in relationship, or don't you dare knock over my camera, Kitty. Kitty, come here. How else do they arise? Yeah, they can come up through movement. Sometimes people have secondary processes, for example, that are happening through the movement channel. It's like, my intention is to give you a hug or a handshake, but every time we meet, I step on your toes. It's happening through the movement and relational channel. Like, what's up with it, right? Or, like you asked me, well, Bill, do you want to have a group next month? And I say, sure, right? Like, maybe I'm even intending to say yes, but something in my tone suggests something else other than yes. Yeah, for example. Or I want to work on my writing, but I just can't stay awake. Sleepiness comes secondarily. All kinds of examples. We want to finish, our studies, etc., and other things may arise. So it's a huge, complex thing, this intersection of primary and secondary processes. And this is what's exciting. I was taking a walk this morning thinking, well, what's really exciting for me? Because when I'm teaching, I like to kind of like ask myself, what am I most interested in? What really excites me about the topic? And I think what excites me about this is the possibility for how at the intersection of primary and secondary, change can occur, growth can occur, and importantly, at least for me and for process work, the way, call it the way, yeah? How to proceed in a given moment. Where am I going? Where is this group going? We don't know yet, but at this intersection, there's a lot of important information that happens at the intersection of primary and secondary that could suggest where I'm going, where you're going, where the group is headed. So, to me, that's so important. Is I'm thinking like, what is my life about? What is the struggle about? Where is it taking me? How am I developing? Who am I becoming? Yeah, I think that this confluence oftentimes suggests either subtly or in hugely impactful ways potential answers to those questions. Yeah, so it's a really exciting area where, for example, identity could expand. Yes, today this thing is really a disturbing, weird, foreign, unfamiliar thing, and then maybe with some work there's some greater integration. Oh, I only knew myself as a nice person, but because of the secondary process that's starting to arise, I'm also realizing I can be a not nice person. I can be a direct, aggressive person. I didn't know that. I hated that part. But now I realize I actually need that. It helps me to relate, stand up for myself, etc. Right? Or I didn't really, I thought I was a business-minded person, very boundary and serious, but I didn't realize that there's a really important, goofy, playful part of me that I thought I lost when I left childhood. And I realized being that this child part that started to emerge, it gives me joy that I had forgotten about, for example. Yeah? Or at a group level, let's say we're studying process work, but we may find over time that the most important thing that comes to the group for you is the friendships that occur. For example, I think that's already kind of there with you all, but I'm just making a little suggestion. What I'm saying is just like, I think you know what I'm saying. Let's see, anything else? Let me look at my notes for a moment, and then please, if you have any comments or questions. Yeah, please go ahead.
How does it map onto like conscious, unconscious, or is it like how does that?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, to me, it's a fairly complex question you're asking, and let me say why it is. I think there is some overlap with conscious and unconscious. The thing is that even with primary processes, people can be really immersed in a primary process and be somewhat unconscious about it. Yeah, like a person could be a parent or a teacher and have a fair amount of identity with that. But still, the actual process of being a teacher, of being a parent, et cetera, could be less than conscious. Could be somewhat even automatic. Yeah?
Yeah.
But that said, a lot of times secondary processes happen outside of conscious, or they're barely conscious. Like, what is this thing that's starting to creep into my tone of voice? Or the way I shake your hand? Or like, what is this ache that I'm starting to feel in my side? I was ignoring it. It was basically unconscious, but it started to get more painful. Like, what is this thing? And then I realized I need to go see a doctor. Or when I go into it, yeah, maybe there's something that actually needs to be attended to at a medical level, but maybe there's also something like someone had a symptom, and then when you start talking more, the symptom, how you experience it, it shifted, even in a few minutes. So I think there's also things about body and mind and how they inform one another. So, yeah. Let me look at my notes for just a minute, see if I got the main things that I wanted to say. I use the word disturbing because I think that's often a way that people experience secondary processes as disturbing experiences, events, behaviors, feelings, movements, sights, sounds, smells, etc. Yeah. So then, for example, symptoms of any kind, physical symptoms, relational symptoms, any symptom, almost by definition, is secondary, because almost no one intends to have a symptom. Oh, now I'm going to give myself a stomachache. Most people don't do that. Occasionally, but mostly not. One other thing. So here, I kind of suggested that, like, let's say there's a. Let me draw it this way. Let's say there's a rough identity and a sphere of awareness and intent, and then kind of outside of it, there's a secondary thing that may be starting to occur. So here at this boundary, we also refer to it as an edge. And for example, in your own personal process, or you're conducting therapy with someone, supporting a person to explore the secondary process is often really edgy. Some people can barely talk about the thing, let alone start to experience what starts to exist for a person, on that other side. And so working at the edge is really an interesting and important thing, because at the edge we can become fearful, we can become confused, doubtful, etc., etc. So edge work is it's a really interesting thing. And then psychologically, working with edge figures who suggest don't go there, basically. You know, don't express yourself in that way. You're going to get hurt, or terrible things are going to happen. So it's also interesting, the psychic figures that may exist for individuals and groups at the edge.
Is this is the edge of the identity, awareness, or intent?
Yeah, of what is known and what is unknown,
Okay.
what's unfamiliar, what's new, etc.
Okay.
Yeah, in little and big ways. Now that said, it's somewhat rare to have an experience that's purely secondary, purely primary, because they're often mixed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what I would say about primary and secondary. Wonder if you have any comments or questions.
I just have something that's occurring to me
Yeah.
around fear.
You okay being recorded?
That's fine, yeah.
All right.
Around fear,
Yeah.
I wonder if fear is always a sign that someone's at an edge, or that an edge is present.
Mm.
And I'm just wondering, is there a possibility of experiencing an edge and there not be fear?
Huh. Yeah, it's a good one. I think fear is often there at an edge, but I also know that sometimes, I think it depends on what the experience is and who the person is. Like if you've done a lot of work on yourself, for example, there may be something that's rising secondarily and you're not afraid. You may be curious, or maybe you're excited, or maybe you're confused, or something like that. I don't think that necessarily there needs to be fear, but I think not infrequently there is fear.
Right, but I was just thinking, if there's fear,
Mhm.
I wonder if that's always a sign that there's an
Oh.
edge.
Hmm.
And it's just a different relationship to it. That
Yeah, that's a good question. I
I'm
notice-
noticing, I'm exploring
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
I notice I'm tempted to think probably, yeah, because fear suggests that there's the others over there. Yeah, it's not me. It's this other thing. Yeah, because if there's a way where the thing, let's say this experience or this action or this idea or feeling, whatever it is over here, if it's really known, I would tend to think there would not be fear. Yeah? Is that where you're also going? That if there is fear, it somehow suggests something that is not me, that's not us. Maybe
Not
you're
sure.
thinking about something.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think it's an interesting question. Yes?
I'm curious if the way that I'm hearing this is that like the fear, the doubt, the confusion is story, is defense, is anything that's keeping us from expansion. So depending on your history and your ego identification, that's going to shift depending on who you are. and how much
That all
work
sounds
you've
good.
done. Is that
Mhm.
okay? I'm just
Yeah.
seeing if I.
Yeah, no, it sounds good to me. Yeah. Other thoughts? Question? Maybe that's good. Is that good?